Man, it's been a while since I've done one of these videos. In order to get back into the spirit, let me find a monster I fought a lot. Let's see. I fought a lot of Anjaneth. That would be nice. What about Oda? I have a problem. If it wasn't already obvious, I love Odogaron? Odo. And before I go and start rambling like my Legicus video, I'm gonna keep it simple. For a brief explanation of my fascination for Odo in World when I first played, Odo was the first fight that really fully felt intense to me. For those who don't know, World was my first Monster Hunter game. My first time I was introduced to the series. With his speed and his just straight coolness and the environmental hazards that the Vale brought, it really truly made his fight like one to remember for. As I said before, I'm keeping it brief, so let's move on to behavior. I removed the lore part of the segment as that's something entirely else, in all honesty. Odo is considered to be an apex predator, similar to that of Rathalos and Diablos. His primary habitat is the Rotten Vale, a map introduced in Monster Hunter World, but he can also be found and fought in the Coral Highlands. In-game, it is shown that the Coral Highlands is directly above the Rotten Vale, so it's reasonable to assume that Odo's hunting territory is fairly large. Although Odogaron is primarily a scavenger, this is most likely due to the lack of, alive things in the Vale. He is fully capable of hunting, alive things, that is. And he's also very aggressive. In Mastering, Odo carries around meat with it. Once this meat is consumed, or any meat for that matter, it begins to glow red and starts to steam. The red is its veins pumping blood throughout its body, a concept which is far too familiar at this point in Monster Hunter. And this state is hyper-aggressive. The behavior of Ebony Odo is similar to normal Odo, except it is a roaming predator, so it not only resides in the Rotten Vale and the Coral Highlands, but it can appear in any map. But instead of only becoming aggressive after eating, it also gains access and the ability to use Dragon Element. Similar to other Dragon Element monsters, it can easily lose control and go on hungry rampages, as, let's be honest, Dragon is more of a mental state than it is an element, or at least lore-wise. His design is where it's all at for me, and for what I like of it. Odogaron is a fanged wyvern, similar to that of Zinogre and Great Jagras. However, unlike those two, Odogaron is much more sleek and not nearly as bulky. Odogaron, being a fanged wyvern, is kind of important, as before World, there is only one fanged wyvern, which was Zinogre, and of course, Zinogre's subspecies, and you know what I mean. So, with World, they introduced a lot of fanged wyverns, and really elaborated on what the fanged wyvern skeleton could look like. Odogaron shares his same skeleton with Topikadachi. Although Odo possesses traits akin to mammals, it is in fact a wyvern, well, a reptile. It has scales instead of, skin, and it possesses other wyvern-esque characteristics, which are really much. Yeah, that's not really saying much, all things considered, mostly due to the fact that we don't have wyverns in real life as a reference. Odogaron has 2 rows of claws. In gameplay, this both serves as an indicator for the bleed status effect and a justification for why you can apply it over, other monsters like Diablos. Side note, it's just a little side personal thing. Odogaron is, in my opinion, one of the hardest monsters to draw due to the texture of its skin. Right, it's very bumpy, and honestly, the primary part of his design is that texture. Of course, that doesn't stop talented artists from doing so. I'm just bad. Its dog-like appearance and red color have let fans dub him Odo the Big Red Dog. I'll let you guess what that's a reference for. And I am all for that. I love joking about monsters' designs and whatnot. Before Rise, Odogaron was one of the most traditionally Japanese-inspired monsters. Well, at least in my opinion. Honestly, look at his face. It's like the perfect Oni mask. Even the armor reflects this idea, which by far is some of the most popular armor in Monster Hunter's history. Ebony Odo's design is interesting to me. It seems like part of its scales have dulled. Some of the more vibrant reds still remaining, but now there's a purpley blue. This blue is most noticeable on its tail, which on paper it sounds like an excellent idea, like in terms of red, blue, and grayish colors. That sounds nice. But in game it leads to like a weird looking clash. Well, at least its armor's still sick. Combat and gameplay. Odo is fast. Even that is an understatement. Be prepared to roll and do not stay in one place for too long, or you will get smacked. Sticking to his side is your best bet, since the majority of his attacks are forward-facing. His entire body is a weak point, so you don't lose too much DPS sticking to its side. If anything, that's where you want to be, as you can get trips easily, especially if you break his legs. Which sounds cruel, but if you play Monster Hunter, then you know about breaking legs. Am I right? If you get hit by the claws, try not to do that. You get the bleed stats effect. If you're currently bleeding from every hole in your body, don't move at all. Like attack or roll, as that will cause the blood to immediately and rapidly come rushing out of your body. Hey, alright, wait a sec. This is now turned into a PSA, public service announcement, about the bleed status effect. If you've been bled, then you know to crouch to stop the bleeding, right? This isn't, Monster Hunter, of course. If you're actually bleeding, please call the hospital. Normally people get hit doing this again, right? You're crouching and you're standing still, which means the monster could easily hit you. Well, did you know that in every game that has bleed, if you can still move while crouching to stop the bleed effect? Yeah. I learned this by accident, because I was trying to run away from Odo, and when I was moving, my bleed stopped. Yes, you can move while bleeding to stop the bleeding, while crouched, that is. Alright, that is if you don't have jerky, but this works in every single Monster Hunter game. If you take one thing away from this video, let it be this. Alright, there. And now you no longer have to worry about getting bitch slapped while sitting there like a moron. Fighting Ebony Odo is a bit different. You will more than likely get hit by Dragon Blight, since it is the super hard to dodge hop Dragon Blight attack, which is honestly his most notable attack. You'll need to take this into account as bring nullberries for this fight, and also you can still apply bleed too. Just the Dragon Blight is going to be primarily what you're hit by. Also, sticking to his side may not work as well as it did for normal Odo, as unlike normal Odo, his hit zones are much worse, as in his entire body's not a weak spot, really only just his head, until you break his claws, that is. But even when you break his claws, they're not that good of a weak spot, so, if you really don't want to worry about super amped Dragon Doggo, then bring elemental damage, as elemental damage stops Ebony's dragon element easiest. Alright, at least it has for me. For element, water for Ebony, and then ice for normal. Honestly, the Rotten Vale is such a fantastic map for Odo, and just in general. Right? It's one of the most unique ideas for a map, a giant desolate wasteland built inside the innards of a dead elder dragon, where it essentially has is symbiotic the right word? I don't know, it has a relationship with the Coral Highlands, where the death and decay provides nutrients to the land above, making it prosper. And it ties so well into the story of life and rebirth, which is really the entirety of what the world is about, the space world. And Odo is fits so perfectly on that map too, along with a monster like Valhazan. Even though Odo's the apex, right? He's clearly the top predator of the Rotten Vale, at least before Iceborne came in. Even then, he still holds that position super well, as the other monsters that they really introduced don't really truly feel too much like Apexes in the Vale. That being like Tigrex, who's a roaming predator in the world, but he can't actually handle the effluvium very well. If you notice, similar to Radobon, he stays at the top parts of the Vale for the most part, where there's less effluvium. Or even acidic Lavinus, who, while being native to the lower parts of the Vale, he doesn't, and really honestly being more native to the Vale than a lot of the other monsters are that are in the Vale, he's still not Odo, I guess. I don't know. All I'm just saying is, Odo fits so good as a apex predator in the Vale, and he just fits the general aesthetic. Odogaron in the future. Yes, of course. Why would? Well, let me break it down this way. Odo consistently ranks high on popularity polls for monsters. Many talented artists have made amazing pieces of Odo. His art remains one of the most popular, not just in gameplay due to its like amazing skills of things like speed sharpening and expert, but also in like cosplay. I mean, look at this One Piece. And look what happens when I look up the cosplay for it. There's so many pieces from so many talented artists. He has one of the best designed fights, one of the best designs leading into that whole simplicity of the monsters. And honestly, his on-map behaviors are some of the most excellently executed. From the way he hunts and stalks, to the way he interacts with the small monsters and the large monsters. Odo is by far one of the most aggressive monsters, to be fair. Like, he gets I think Odo has like one of the highest lists of unique turf wars. He wasn't in Rise, which honestly didn't make sense to me, seeing as, you know, he really is Japanese inspired. And he wasn't in Stories 2, which made even less sense to me, seeing as how much of a fan favorite monster he is. I just wish I knew why Capcom doesn't want Odogaron to be in the games moving forward. It's not like he needs a new coat of paint. He's perfectly fine the way he is, in all honesty. I can see no reason why Odogaron is being forgotten by Capcom. Well, I can think of one. Let's just say, looking up pictures for this video, it wasn't so pleasant. Now, before I go, I'd like to thank you all for watching. I'm learning techniques, I'm experimenting with things, I'm trying different things, and I have a little project coming up. I'll make a video explaining what that project is, and I'd like you guys all to engage and have fun with it. I want this to be like a community thing. Alright, well, subscribe if you want to, leave a like and comment if you've enjoyed. Don't follow my Twitter. Why would you do that? It's weird. Have a wonderful morning, evening, or night, and happy hunting! See you all later.